Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. It is December 15th, 2023. Let's talk Jake Paul against Andre August. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. All right, now I need for people to understand, and we'll give the full explanation here, that this is a high-risk fight, right? What I'm suggesting here is high risk. I'll be the casino's Huckleberry here. I'll take Andre August at a plus 652. Again, that's Andre August at a plus 652. Now, keeping in mind that this is an 8-round fight, I'm going to hedge the play with the over 6.5 at a minus 156. In other words, if Andre August wins the fight, 8-round fight, you're good, right? Whether he does it early or late, because the plus 652 should water a lot of plants. Right? If Jake Paul, who's going off at a minus 1124, in other words, Jake Paul is a better than 11-1 favorite, right? If Jake Paul wins the fight after the midway point of the 7th round, right, a 6.5 means that you get 6 full rounds and half of the 7th. If Jake Paul, after the halfway point of the 7th round, is able to win the fight by stoppage, you're good. If the fight goes the distance, you're good, because the over hedge will hold, right? Will have held. Understand, the over at 6.5 is an imperfect hedge. It's a minus 156. You're not getting even money on it. But I need for folks to understand the risk involved. Jake Paul, who's pretending to be a buffoon, who, is pretending to be a dilettante in boxing, who's fighting people like Tommy Fury. I know he lost the match. Trust me, Jake Paul's a lot better than Tommy Fury. Understand that Jake Paul has an A-level straight right hand, but he needs room to throw it. You can actually smother Jake Paul's straight right. And understand that Andre August, who has problems, this guy's a far from perfect opponent, but Andre August, who's had one fight in 4 years, he's a smotherer. He's going to come inside. He's not going to wait outside like Regis Prograis. No. This is a guy who's going to come inside, who's going to throw volume, who's going to try to straighten up and back up Jake Paul, who's not going to give Jake Paul the opportunity to lean into his front foot. Now let's talk about Andre August, because there seems to be a lot of crazy news going on around there. First off, Andre August, even though he looks young, is 35 years old. Let's be clear here. He's 35 years old. Folks, he was knocked out in the 2nd round of a fight. He has a KO loss. In terms of his ring career, just understand, this was a bright up-and-coming amateur. Now, I've said this before, right? You remember the Baby Bull Diaz, who was fighting out of Houston and had an active fan base in Houston, right? Understand, the Charlo brothers fight out of Houston, right? Houston's a fight town, folks. When you see Houston, you need to think about towns like New York City, Philly, Chicago, another boxing hub. These days, Minnesota, right? Los Angeles. Houston's a boxing town. Understand, the state of Texas is a boxing state, right? Guys like Errol Spencer from Dallas, right? Andre Austin, as an amateur, was a two-time state of Texas runner-up. He's from the Houston area. This is a guy who won the regional Golden Gloves tournament. So as an amateur, he was promising. Let's be clear here. He flamed out as a professional, right? This fight, 8-round fight, it's going to be the first 8-round fight of Andre Austin's career, Andre August's career, right? Just understand again, as I mentioned earlier, he was off for 4 years before he beat a guy, Brandon Martin, recently in August. He's had one fight since November of 2019. Now, the reason why he's my gambling pick is simply a style situation, right? He's a guy who is going to be front foot. Jake Paul is going to have to navigate through volume. And he's going to have to navigate through the fact that August is actually a shorter guy who knows how to fight low. He's going to have to navigate through a height dynamic to land his A-level right hand. Right, folks? It's going to be a challenge. This is a different fight than the Tommy Fury fight, where Jake Paul was frustrated trying to read feints. This is also a different fight than the Nate Diaz fight, where Nate Diaz came in and had less power, quite frankly, than Andre August has. Right, so this is a complicated fight. I believe it's going to take these guys a little bit. But understand, everyone expected Brandon Martin, who was unbeaten at the time, to beat August, who was, of course, coming off years of inactivity. Martin was a taller guy. I have highlights from August's career in my favorites folder here on YouTube. Martin is the tall guy. In the video where you have audio, right, there's a section of the highlights where you actually hear audio. And the guys are saying this fight is up for grabs, right? Understand, August had no business winning that fight. August came in against the taller, unbeaten opponent in a 6-round fight. That fight wasn't 8 rounds. And then was able to come in, start fast. And that's important in these fights that are less than 12, right? He starts fast. He has volume. Martin never gets going. Now, if he can fight that fight against Jake Paul, and if Jake Paul is unable to land a straight right hand, is unable to find August's head, then August has a chance here to shock some people. Here's the catch. This fight, unlike the Martin fight, is not a 6-round fight. It's an 8-round fight. Since we know that August is 35 years old and has never been 8 rounds as a professional, I'm expecting Jake Paul to dominate the last 2 rounds of the fight. That's where the hedge comes in. If Jake Paul has a hard time, as I suspect he will, finding this guy early, keeping this guy off of him early, slowing down this guy early, and if he doesn't get going for the first 4 or 5 rounds, then you have a chance at either the underdog here, the greater than 6-1 underdog, and I'm biased toward underdogs, pulling off the upset and putting you in the penthouse, or of the underdog slowing down later in the fight and then losing after the midway point of the 7th round. But please understand the risk involved. Jake Paul went through a long stretch of his career, right? The few fights he's had, right? What has he had? 8 fights? Where he was knocking out people like Ben Askren, Nate Robinson, early with right hands, right? He's a knockout puncher. The best punch in this fight is a Jake Paul straight right hand. You remember how he stops Tyrone Woodley, right? If he lands here on Andre August before the midway point of the 7th round and drops and stops him, you lose it all. That's the risk I'm taking here. I like the underdog, August, simply to win. The odds are nice. They're a plus 650 or so. And I'm hedging the play with the over 6.5 rounds, right? If Jake Paul gets a stoppage after the midway point of the 6th round, hell, if either guy gets a stoppage after the midway point, of the 7th round, I'm good. I like the over 6.5 hedged with the underdog simply to win. Let me know how you see the fight. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. Right, again, August is a guy who has not gone 8 rounds, who, despite a decorated amateur career, a promising amateur career, let's not over-exaggerate it, this guy's not an Olympic gold medalist, right? Despite a promising amateur career, his pro career was a little bit of a flop. He has 10 wins, right? 1 KO loss, 1 draw. Understand, he's not a power puncher. He only has 5 KOs. Let me tell you, too, the quality of his opposition is a little bit curious. We're talking about different fights here, right? And I'm not going back to when he first started. And keep in mind, this is a guy who I believe fought 3 opponents who were in their debut fights, right? But let me just name 3 fights the guy had in 2019. He fought a guy who was 6 wins, 25 losses, and 3 draws. He fought another guy who had 5 wins, 16 losses, and 1 draw. He fought another guy who had 7 wins, 13 losses, and no draws, right? So you're talking about August as a guy who has a padded record. He did look good in his comeback fight against Brandon Martin. I'll concede that. There's no question about that. Just to give you an idea of the Brandon Martin fight. Martin at the time, 7-0. Right? August was able to come inside, get underneath him. Martin, the taller guy, could not keep the shorter guy off of him. 2 of the judges gave August every round. 1 judge gave him 5 of the 6. He needs that kind of start against Jake Paul. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video for the August highlights, keeping in mind that this guy fought a lot of scrubs, right? The guy who stops him in the 2nd round, a guy named Eric Abraham, was 3-3 at the time, right? Just keep that in mind as you're looking at the highlights on August's career in the favorites folder of my YouTube account. Thanks for stopping by.